we should not be funding things that make us feel better when we're not, because it's like funding delusion. Like, I'm trying to say it strong enough that we stop and pause and think, am I just throwing money at something, or are we actually getting somewhere with this? And if we're getting somewhere, then it's going to be well worth the time, the energy, and the money that's being put into it.
Welcome to Money Market, a Bank of Tampa podcast. We highlight the businesses, expert business advice, the local economy, points of interest in the Tampa Bay market. Follow us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, and wherever you find all of your podcasts. Make sure you like, follow, subscribe, and share this episode with a friend or colleague. I am your host, Owen LaFave, the Pinellas County Market President for the Bank of Tampa, Tampa Bay's oldest, largest community bank. Today's guest, Dr. Chris Slininger. Yes?
Slininger.
Close enough.
It's close enough.
Sorry.
It's okay.
I hate the default. Like, I know you did another podcast. He just called you Dr. Chris. I'm just going to call you Dr. Chris.
We're going to go with that.
All right, man. I appreciate it. Doctor of chiropractic and is a craniocervical specialist focusing on helping patients that have a prolonged and complex neurological issues like headaches, migraines, post-concussive injuries, dizziness, brain fog, and a whole lot more. He is one of less than 80 craniocervical specialists nationwide and only one of 2 certified advanced orthogonists with this degree. He also serves as the executive director of the Advanced Orthogonal Institute, training doctors around the country on the cutting-edge technique. Dr. Chris is a U.S. Army veteran, also serving in Operation Iraqi Freedom. He's been featured on TV as well as the upper cervical care documentary called The Secret to Healing. He's been serving the Tampa Bay market since 2013.
That's right.
Dr. Chris, thank you for tolerating that very long and jumbled intro. But man, thanks for coming on Money Market.
Thank you for the intro. Yeah.
Okay. So we're here to talk about a couple things. Chiropractic care, because I want everybody to know about your background and kind of a unique, holistic approach to your patient care. But also, you've got some big, audacious goals surrounding overall healthcare, healthiness, creating the first healthy city. I'm really excited to get into both, but maybe the easiest question to start with is what drew you to chiropractic care?
That was interesting. So I grew up in a very medical household. So if we got sick, we went to the doctor, typically would do what the doctor says, take some over-the-counter drugs to make you feel better. But I started to test things when I was pretty young, where I noticed that if we missed a medication or a dose that was recommended, I still got better. And I started to recognize a pattern to this. So I'm like, what if I start testing this on purpose? So I'd skip doses for a whole day, 2 days when I'm supposed to be taking medicine. And
I'm sure your parents love that.
Well, they hated it, but they hated it. But it started to wake me up to something. And I was recognizing, I'm like, I don't think it's the medicine that's getting us better at all, actually. And I would start to get better faster and feel better through the process by doing that. And it got to the point where I went surfing one day. This is actually a funny story. In the middle of the winter in New Jersey. So there was like ice chunks floating in the waves. Well, we wear thick wetsuits, but I stayed out way too long. I ended up getting hypothermia and pneumonia.
Oh, wow.
And so my mom brings me to the doctor, and the doctor goes, okay, this is really serious. This is walking pneumonia. This is something that could kill you. I'm going to give you an antibiotic. You need to take that. Rest for 5 days. We'll check you again, and definitely don't go surfing.
Okay.
So in my mind, I'm like, well, I've recognized this pattern over a while. I want to see how true my theory is. So I decided I'm not taking a single one of those drugs. I want to see what happens, because I'm like, hey, this is a life or death kind of trial and error situation. And I like testing things that way. So I did. We went to the pharmacy, and my mom's looking at me with like the death stare going, you will take those medicine. I'm thinking in my head, no, I'm not taking a single one of those. I pocketed every single one of those pills. 3 days later, went surfing. 5 days later, we went back to the doctor, and the nurse is checking my lungs, and she goes, wow, you're the fastest resolving case of pneumonia we've ever had. She goes, good thing that you took that medication. I go, well, actually, I didn't take anything. And my mom looked over like, what are you talking about? And the nurse just goes, I'm going to get the doctor. And I'm like, this is going to be a terrible day. But what's interesting is the doctor comes in, the first thing he says is, so I heard you didn't take any of your medicine. I said, yes, but your nurse said I'm the fastest resolving case of pneumonia she's ever seen. And he said, that's not the point. I said, wait, that kind of is the point. I'm better. And he goes, no, that's not the point. You were really irresponsible. I go, but I'm better, and I'm better faster. And he said, well, you really should have taken the medicine. And it was on that day, this like light bulb went off I was like, I don't think they actually know what makes the body well. They only know what's supposed to make it sick. I don't think they actually understand what makes it well. And
I don't know enough about pneumonia, but is that, I mean, is it viral? Is it bacterial?
it could be both, but it just causes a lot of fluid and accumulation in the lungs.
But I wonder if it was viral, and so the antibiotics wouldn't have had any impact
It
at all
wouldn't have
anyway,
had any
right?
impact anyway, but the point, I mean, I went surfing within 3 days of getting pneumonia, which I was not supposed to do, because every time I would get sick and I would go in the ocean, the salt water would make me feel better. So I did all the things that I knew made me stronger, healthier, and better faster naturally, and avoided all the other things that they were saying would suppress the illness. So I didn't focus on the illness. I focused on the wellness. And to them, it like broke. It's like something broke inside of them. They're like, you can't do that. And I'm like, isn't that the point? So
What if we did the exact opposite of what I'm saying?
it basically left this burning question in me, like, what makes the body well? And the first person to ever answer the question was a chiropractor.
Okay.
I didn't actually like the way he practiced, but I thought he had really interesting answers. So I decided to become a chiropractor literally just to answer the question, what makes the body well? It was the driving force behind the whole thing. Not, I really want to practice this way. Just, I want that question answered.
Okay. So how did that passion evolve into founding Cerebral Chiropractic?
So I've been in practice for 12 years. I really wanted to make sure that if I practiced, I did it in a way that got down to the root cause of problems, but not by trying to address the symptoms. I wanted to make sure that we were doing something that restored the environment that would cause the body and the brain to get well. So you restore the environment of healing. Rather than just suppressing the illness, suppressing the pain, masking the pain, or making it feel better. And so when we opened Cerebral a year and a half ago, it was basically the culmination of everything from, having pneumonia all the way through grad school, all the way through practice, putting all those pieces together and saying, all right, we're going to be a clinic and a culture that doesn't focus on addressing the symptom of a problem. We're going to be a culture and a clinic that focuses on identifying the missing elements that your body and your brain need in order to repair, heal, and get well again.
Okay, focus on, and I think chiropractic care gets a bit of a bad name sometimes. I mean, they're great. I mean, you're an example of someone who really, I mean, I won't say it's unique necessarily, but I think probably more often than not, the rap on chiropractic care is, look, we just want to, it's a factory, right? Get you in, get you out, get you dusted, and never really fix the root cause. Just keep you coming back every week, every month for that, the adjustment, right?
Yeah, I think, look, there's always a bad apple in a bunch, and it does happen sometimes, and that experience can sometimes go a lot further than the good ones. But I think a big part of what happens is, I'll put it this way: a medical doctor, when they graduate medical school, it doesn't define what they do.
Mm-hmm.
They could be a neurologist, a podiatrist, a rheumatologist, a general practitioner. They could be a lot of things, and all of them have MD after their name.
Right.
So just because they have MD, you don't know what they do yet. You don't know what a lawyer does just because they say, I'm a lawyer.
Right.
You know what their
different
capability
specialties.
range might be, but not what they do. And chiropractors are very much the same. And so the best results from any form or subspecialty of chiropractic care are going to come from making sure that the root cause of a problem is identified and the approach to that problem is specific to that problem. So, for example, I'm a craniocervical specialist. I deal with head and neck issues, complex neurological issues. If someone has a blown out, herniated low back disc, I'm not the person you want to see.
Okay.
You need to go through rehab, and there's chiropractors who have their entire clinics built around like disc rehab. They're going to be great at it, and you're probably going to get the best results with someone like them, not with someone like me. But migraines, absolutely. That's the kind of stuff we knock out of the park, because we're dealing with cerebral blood flow, brainstem function, and cerebrospinal fluid dynamics, which is a totally different category.
Yeah. And I guess for our listeners, so they have a good level set of the conversation, because we've already mentioned some terms they may not be completely familiar with. But so if you could, I've kind of identified 4, let me know if there's different, but traditional chiropractic care, upper cervical chiropractic care, which is, you were talking about the top of the neck, the top 2 vertebrae, cerebral chiropractic care, which I think is unique to you and maybe coined by you and your approach, and then advanced orthogonal chiropractic care.
Yeah. So great question, actually. That's a great question. So chiropractic care in general, the foundations of it all the way back to its origins is to correct the alignment of the spine to allow the nerves that go through the spine to transmit their signals the right way without any interference. And there's lots of ways it can cause interferences. Upper cervical chiropractic care focuses on the joint structure between the skull, the atlas, and the axis, which is C1 and C2.
Okay. So right kind of at the base.
Right at the base of the skull, top of the neck. The reason why that is its own category is there's no disc there. So you can't have a herniation in your upper neck. That joint is made for motion. So when we move our head around, these are highly mobile joints that are also very vulnerable. So when we get in fights, car accidents, concussions, things like that, other falls, that whiplash type motion can destabilize or misalign those joint structures and cause interference at the brains, like the lower brainstem level and the top of the spinal cord. It's basically the main bundle of nerves that exit the brain.
Okay.
So it has a much
Very
more
serious,
global effect. Great example, Christopher Reeve.
Yeah.
Right? When he fell off that horse and he broke his neck, he broke C1 and C2 and it severed through his spinal cord.
Okay.
How much of his body did it affect?
Yeah, all of it.
All of it.
Yeah.
But for him, it was an on-off switch. If you misalign the same area he fractured and severed, it will be more like a dimmer switch, and it mutes or alters the signal between the brain and the body on a lower level.
Okay, so that's where the brain fog, the dizziness, the headaches, migraines, all those things kind of could be symptomatic of an injury like that.
Yeah, you can have direct nerve interference that causes some of those symptoms. You were asking about cerebral chiropractic care.
Right.
It's not an actual type of chiropractic care, but you're actually the second person that pointed that out. Somebody said, I'm looking for a cerebral chiropractor. And I was like, yes, we're winning on marketing. Yeah. Because I was like, there's no such thing as that. All right. So it's actually going so far that people are starting to identify that the way we're looking at it as a type rather than a brand, which is really, really cool. But the one thing I'll say is with cerebral, we included the evaluation of cerebral blood flow, so how well the flow patterns work into and out of the brain, which nourishes the brain and also drains the brain out. And then we also look at cerebrospinal fluid influences. So your brain sits in this fluid that nourishes it and protects it. And this is really cool. The CSF in the brain, it's actually the filter system. So we have something called the glymphatic system where the cerebrospinal fluid will flow between the nerve cells and carry out a bunch of metabolic waste, and it drains back out the jugular vein to be expelled from the body. So it's the only filter we have in there. And if that system doesn't work effectively, it is one of the number one factors in driving neurodegeneration if left long enough.
Okay.
So basically your brain...
It's just polluted.
Yeah, basically that fluid that's supposed to be clean and clear, it turns into sewer water and your brain just sits in it all the time.
Yeah, that's terrifying.
Nobody wants that. No. And then you said advanced orthogonal. Advanced orthogonal care is the actual procedure that we use to correct the alignment of the upper neck, and we use a percussive sound wave adjustment to do it. So typically chiropractors will twist or crack the neck to adjust it.
Yes.
We're actually
Which
measuring.
Is always terrifying to me, but
it's terrifying to a lot of people. And this I think is one of the things that sets us very far apart. Is we can adjust the spine using only like a sonic impulse, essentially, to shift the bone under the skin without even touching you.
Wow. Okay.
So it's not like playing music. It's like a gentle sonic hammer, essentially. So we're making a single impulse, and that sound wave power is shifting it back into alignment under the skin, and it's calculated off our X-rays.
Now, obviously, a lot more gentle than just the manual correction. Mm-hmm. Does it take longer as a result of that?
No. The amount of time it takes someone to recover or stabilize is based on how much instability they have in the first place. So, for example, I've had about 10 concussions, at least 3 knockout concussions from military, surfing, snowboarding, and whatever other thing I decided to do. So I actually have kind of a lot of craniocervical instability. Combatives fighting in the military. Yeah. You just shake that one off and keep going, right?
Keep going, right?
But later on, you're feeling the effects of it. And I remember coming out of grad school, I had massive brain fog, headaches every day. My spine felt like bound up. I couldn't move right. My back hurt. One half of my body was weaker than the other. And it wasn't until after grad school when I started practice here in St. Pete, actually at the Pierce Clinic, I got my first well done upper cervical correction, and all of that lifted. And I started to get cognition back. I slept better. Headaches went away. And after about 6 months, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm actually more intelligent than I thought I was. Like I could think.
I haven't
again.
lost it.
Yeah, but I was actually getting concerned because I'm like, I know I have more capability. I just can't access it.
You've kind of described your career as a calling. So, I mean, would you say kind of mission and faith are, align your thinking
Absolutely.
along that?
Yeah.
How do you think that impacts you?
I never got into this for a title, for recognition, for anything. I got into it because I love people and I want them to be able to do what they're called to do. And I just saw this as a way to unlock people's potential. But yeah, I with all my heart, I do what I do because I'm doing it to serve God first and then the people that he's saying to serve. And I really feel like my assignment is this city. It is St. Petersburg itself. So everything we're trying to do with Cerebral, not just clinically, but through education and through the way we interact with people, the way we try to lift others up, other businesses up, and get leaders able to function at their best and serve other people. It's all to just lift an entire city all at the same time.
Yeah. So what about, you mentioned x-rays. Are there other advanced diagnostic tools that you all utilize?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, we do a lot of testing and correlation testing. Okay. When you have a breaker out in the house, or you have, you need to change something. So you have one person stand in a room and another person stand at the breaker box and you're like flipping breakers. Hey, was that the one?
To make sure it goes out.
Was that the one? Was that the one? You're like making sure you're dealing with the right breaker, but you're yelling across the house. That's actually a correlation test, and it's testing the wires we can't see.
Great analogy.
So when we do neurological testing, we're doing correlation testing basically, and we're trying to see, is the symptom that you're experiencing coming from this system or this pathway? We're correlating those until we can narrow it down to the root cause of why the thing is happening. Okay. And then the imaging that we take, we have x-rays. We can use cone beam CT because they're getting advanced enough and big enough to see the whole head and neck, MRIs if necessary, and some other things.
Okay. I mean, anything exciting coming down the pike that you think would be a game changer in that space?
Not even AI, because AI, the best way I can describe it is AI is really good at processing knowledge and doesn't necessarily have wisdom.
Okay.
And you have to be able to approach it with both knowledge and wisdom to do this well.
Now, you have a great analogy that I've heard before between knowledge and wisdom.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I had the patient come in. Farmer's simple version was the difference between knowledge and wisdom. Knowledge is knowing a tomato is a fruit, and wisdom is knowing not to put a tomato in a fruit salad.
Yeah, that's a great analogy. I love that.
But it makes a big difference. And the same thing is true with the human body. It's like knowledge is knowing, for example, a pharmaceutical has this effect on the body. Wisdom is knowing it's a poison.
Right.
And that's why your body's trying to reject it by making you throw up or have diarrhea or sweat it out. It's activating all the detox pathways to try as hard as it can to get it out after you put it in. Mm-hmm. So once you see it that way, you're like, let's stop putting this stuff in that activates detox pathways.
Yes.
Those are the side effects are not side effects. They're the direct effects of the body saying, get that out of here.
Right. Trying to cleanse.
Yeah.
So kind of going back to AI, you see it more as a diagnostic tool versus, because the wisdom piece is what you've been able to identify whatever the issue is, but what do you do with it?
I think in medicine, I think one of the most powerful things it can do is take a huge amount of information, condense it without altering it, and deliver it to the decision maker, like the doctor, in a very rapid, digestible way. I'll do that all the time with other things. People in law use it for contracts. I've looked at contracts with that where it's like, I could read the contract. I'm fine with reading the contract. I could also have it, condense it, and summarize the key critical points just to make sure I understand what it's actually saying. And with medicine and data, you end up with a huge amount of information, and to be able to see it in like a smaller window and then be able to say, so that's what's going on. Okay. Based on now the way the data trends work and the information, now I can make a much clearer decision, and I can even see all the red flags, and they're just tiny bullet points now. I could also say expand on that, and it can go wild. So I can contract or expand as at will, essentially. And I think that's a lot of where it's going, and it's going to be a big assistant to us.
And I think assistant is the right approach, because where I get nervous in my day to day, even through data analytics or just asking to summarize some things, I guess more it is kind of that having it go out and seek information that you're not feeding to it. When you're feeding the information, obviously the quality is pretty good, but when you're asking it to go out and seek, it does hallucinate a lot. There's a lot of errors that, despite, I mean, I've gotten caught just thinking like, it's been so good the last 4 times, not going back and double checking. And sure enough, it's wrong.
I think quarantined AI is actually more powerful. It's kind of like kids. Like there's studies even with kids.
Keep your kids quarantined.
No, AI is like kids. Like kids, if they play in a field that has no boundary to it, they actually feel more nervous and play closer. As soon as you put up a fence and you say you could play inside the fence, they'll go right to the edge of the boundary and fill the entire space. Like they've done these studies before. And I really think that the same thing happens with AI when it has access to everything. It doesn't even know where to begin. So you just get weird information. But as soon as you prompt it to have the right boundaries and the quarantine of its function, it tends to excel in those particular functions. And you end up with much more accurate data. So quarantining its function actually makes it better.
You got a bunch of good analogies. I mean, I was also thinking of cats. Like if you ever brought a cat into a new environment, it stays around the perimeter. I mean, it checks everything out around the outside before it just kind of ventures into the middle. But I agree on the quarantine. And I guess question, I mean, this is it's a business podcast. So before I kind of transition into some of the business and get into the healthy city, I did want to ask, just before we move on, like, where do you see your business in the next 5 to 10 years? How do you see it evolving?
Oh, it's going to be awesome. So we are developing it to be a training and research center. We are actively seeking grants, especially for research in mild traumatic brain injury with veterans. So we hope to be really running with research. Looking to hire a research director. We probably will have multiple locations within 5 years. We have a second one in Rocky Point that might open very, very soon.
Exciting. Right.
Some collaborations with other specialists, so we don't have to do everything alone. And then we're also going to be a training center, so we're going to be opening up internships and our version of residencies from the chiropractic field. So we should have rolling residents through St. Petersburg.
That's exciting.
And these are some of the best candidates around the nation. So we keep high standards.
Coming here.
So basically we're trying to serve definitely St. Petersburg, expand it out, have multiple doctors, be a training and research center, and start educating in scale. And we're looking at publishing books on some of these topics in we were talking about before, plain language terms.
Yes.
Making the complicated things simple so that everybody can benefit.
Now, you are incredibly media savvy. So I think of, I don't know, I mean, I'm trying to think of doctors, and there's a handful. I know Dr. Oz, I mean, Dr. Drew, Andrew Huberman, who we've talked about before. But I mean, where does that savviness come from in this space? Is it innate? Is it something you taught yourself?
For me?
Yes.
It came from the need to help people understand what I never did growing up. I wanted to, I'm like a big translator. I go study the weirdest things I can find and then put it in the plainest terms I possibly can.
Okay.
My friends know this about me. I have a rule, whether it's business or clinical stuff. I call it the napkin rule. But if we're sitting at a restaurant and we have one of those little square napkins, if I can't explain a concept on the surface of a napkin, it's too complicated for pretty much anybody. It doesn't matter if it's a business plan. It doesn't matter if it's neurology or something else. If I want to relay something to you in a way you can totally take home, fit it on a napkin.
That's a great way to look at it.
And that's what I do.
Not dumb it down, but just simplify it.
Make it plain.
Concise. Yeah,
make it plain. Because there's other ways I could go on and talk about all the weird stuff I know, and you'd be like, okay, can we move on to another topic? Like even the podcast would get dull after a while.
I don't know. That might be an interesting other podcast.
but that is the entire thing is breaking it down. Actually, the first doctor I worked for, he said something that really blessed me. He said everybody knows you're a doctor. It's on the door. It's on the website. It's on your card. Just prove to them that you're a human.
Great advice.
Probably the best I ever got.
Right. They're there for your expertise. They know you're the expert.
Yeah.
Right.
They're not wondering. Like, I don't have to sit down and go, hey, I just want to know what all my credentials are. They don't care.
Right.
They're just going, can you help?
Help.
Yeah. That's it. And the way we treat people, I think, reflects on that. So everything I do in media, any of that media savviness is just the desire to make the complicated things simple, as if I was the one when I was younger listening and finally getting a chance to understand.
Well, you do a great job at it. So thank you for simplifying things and being concise. What's the most surprising thing you have found since you started your business?
From a business standpoint, I think one of the hardest things is I've spent the last 12 years trying to be the best doctor I can, push even the boundaries of our field. And now the only thing I can do to scale is structure the business, run the business, train doctors, and create an environment for them to surpass me. And it's the only way we're going to make the impact we're trying to make.
Yeah.
So I knew it was coming. I knew it the whole time, but I think the speed in which it came was a little bit shocking.
Mm-hmm.
And we're already recruiting the next doctor. And I go, I mean, I'm going to be barely practicing if we're going to accomplish our goals.
Right.
Yeah. So
well, great insight for you, because so many business owners, I mean, there's people have asked me before, like, what's your kind of go-to books to recommend people?
Right.
E-Myth Revisited, which is a lot of like, you got to get out of your business, right? You got to work on your business, not in your business, which is famous, coined in that book. And then Traction.
Yep. I would have named that one.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, those are my two. And that's kind of where you were at, where you're creating systems, you're working on the business, but for the other doctors, the other employees to put together and scale the business.
You know what Traction did for so many of us? It gave us a common language between fields.
Yeah. Right.
Like it was not industry specific.
Right. Yes.
And that, I mean, I have friends now that I ask them, how are you running it? They go, we work off the entrepreneur operating system. And I'm like, okay, so we can talk, we can have a conversation.
Yeah, the EOS. Yeah.
Yeah. And by doing that, it levels the playing field for our learning experience, because now we're all on the same page. No matter where we're at or what we're working on, we can grab elements or key nuggets of information or training or opportunities and plug it into our own structure, and then be industry specific for our plan, but our language is the same. We could be talking about banks and clinics, and both of us are learning and growing at the same time.
Yeah, people don't think about, I mean, and we're privately held, but I mean, we're a private business. We just happen to be a bank.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, we've got a similar business model in some senses. But yeah, you nailed it. The next one is good to great. So you'll get there soon too.
I got one more.
Oh yeah.
Dan Martell wrote one called Buy Back Your Time.
I don't know that one.
Great for business leaders.
Okay.
And it really has to do with wisely delegating key tasks to allow you to continue as the founder. And
yes,
and it's been like a breath of fresh air for me. And it's very family centric. He really does it so that he guards his family.
Okay.
But it's super practical, super easy to understand, and stuff you could read and be like, I need to do that like right now. I need to hire someone right now.
I'm going to check that out. I would encourage our listeners to, because one of the other questions you kind of commonly hear, or maybe misconceptions, is that you can't have a successful personal life and then still drive the growth of the business, which, I mean, I think you're a great example of that too, because you have 4 kids? 5 kids? Yes. Yes. And homeschool.
Yep.
And, scaling a great business in the community.
Yeah. I got to crush it all day, and then we're watching Bad Guys 2 tonight. So,
that's a good blend.
It's a great blend.
Yes. All right. So, what about from a marketing standpoint, word of mouth versus, actual media marketing? I mean, how would you say, from the business standpoint, what's driving the business?
For us specifically, definitely word of mouth. A big part of it is the way this community works, especially St. Pete. The Tampa Bay area does, but St. Pete more than any.
Talk about that a little bit. Yeah.
The relationships you have and the people that know, like, and trust you. We have some simple phrases, right?
Yeah.
Like, if they know, like, and trust you, you're going to grow, and they'll open up doors, and this is the city that you live, work, and play. Like, we keep it simple, but it really is the biggest small town ever. And I think that's a big thing that we need to understand when we go into to open a business in this area, or we're trying to grow business in this area. This place grows like a small town.
Yeah.
It really does. I think it's funny that this is the city that you can have guys in like goofy looking shorts and flip flops doing $1 million deal over a weird meal, right? Like,
Yes, yeah.
and no one would know, and nobody cares.
Nobody cares.
Right?
Nobody
Like,
questions.
nobody questions the thing. It's more about the relationship, the opportunity, and how it makes it better. And I think this city has a very unique perspective on thinking generationally. We didn't lose that. It's a highly entrepreneurial city, but we think 2 and 3 generations forward. So we say, hey, if we build this, if we open this business, if we contribute to this initiative, what will it do not only for us, but for our kids and their kids? And we talk like that. And so that's the kind of culture, like I love that culture, but it makes it very easy for us to have that word of mouth type marketing that's way more relational. Because if you can see that I'm doing this not for my sake, not for my well-being, not for my reputation, but to make our kids have a better city, like we're going to have a totally different conversation, and likely we're going to try to synergize for the sake of us both accomplishing our goals.
And I really think that was an evolution that took place in decades, because this was, I mean, we're sitting, in downtown St. Pete right now, where, I mean, it was God's waiting room. So no one was really thinking about the next generation of the future. And I think our, the leaders in the community, I mean, decades ago, finally said, like, look, we need to think about the future. Right. We ended up having a lot of growth, and now what to do with that growth. And so it's furthering the conversation of how can we collaborate and make sure this is a great environment for the generations behind us.
Yeah. On the media side, for us specifically, I looked at social media, YouTube, all the long and short format stuff, and we are virtually invisible online. We have a little bit of media on our website. Okay. We're basically invisible on social media, and we've been exploding. Because we put all our eggs in the basket of relationships, and we're about to launch that. But it took me a while to think about it and really evaluate, who do we want to be, who do we want to be perceived at, and how are we helping the most? And we help some of the types of conditions that have no hope. So what we're going to do is, instead of making sure we have a nice Facebook page that says Merry Christmas on Christmas time and, Happy 4th of July, and put a flag, it's going to be strictly educational, talking about and unpacking and making plain the complicated things, so that people that are suffering, people that are hurting, people that have these strange conditions like POTS and dysautonomia, they realize that we understand, that we care, and that we're here to help.
All right, you said that's forthcoming. So what can we expect there, and what's the timeline on that?
Within the month.
Okay.
Yeah, within the month. And then, we'll be sharing it and asking others to share. But, every time I read the list of conditions we take care of, I say, you're probably not going to understand most of these words. No. But if you understand it, it's probably because either you have it or someone you know has it.
Probably. And I would encourage everybody not to look at WebMD, because you definitely think you'll
WebMD
diagnose yourself.
Totally bought.
You'll diagnose yourself and need to go see Chris whether you have an issue or not.
Yeah, but the point of medical care is not supposed to be to diagnose something. That's like trying to name a pet that you don't want to keep. Right? Like it doesn't make any sense to go and finally get a name for the thing that was unnamed. You need to understand what's causing the thing that's driving your life down, and what's inhibiting your ability to grow or contribute or be a part of your family or engage in your work or your career or pursue your passions. Why am I experiencing what I'm experiencing? And based on what's causing it, is there a solution for that?
But don't you work backwards, right? You diagnose it, you name it, and then you figure out what are the common potential causes, and then work your way back. Now, I know modern medicine just has a tendency to just like treat the symptoms, but kind of using your approach and that logic is like, okay, what are likely the contributing factors to have got you to this place?
If you said it feels like I have so much pressure in my head, and I said, well, that's intracranial pressure, do you feel better about that?
Oh, no, but
if I said, okay,
but what causes
pressure? So if I said, okay, if we do imaging and we find that you have a compressed jugular vein that's blocking the drainage out of your brain, and it's building pressure inside. And I said, so really what you have is a compression of the jugular vein, and the plumbing system of the whole brain's messed up, and we can fix that. How do you feel now? Fair bit better. So naming it doesn't help. Understanding what's driving it, and then also tying that to the right solution. That's when people go, oh, I can hope again. I might be able to get my life back again. And then we start to experience the changes in their physiology and the way they feel and function. That's when people are like, I get to have a life.
Yes. Yeah. And that's the reporting part of the business.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. So you came from Pennsylvania, right?
New Jersey was where I grew up.
Okay.
Pennsylvania was where I went to undergrad.
Went to undergrad.
Yeah.
Okay. And then why did you settle here? What brought you here?
So grad school was California and then to Florida.
Okay.
And this was actually plan B.
All right.
Yeah.
What was plan A?
I was going to take over an office in Rimini, Italy. It was an upper circle office and be the regional director, but of the European offices. I was ex-Army, so I was used to command units, and I was used to managing a whole lot of people. So they were going to position me over there to basically run the expansion through Europe. But the corporation just was kind of a hot mess. Didn't even know how to get me a contract, but wanted me to get on a plane anyway. And I was like, no. So in the midst of me trying to organize that, I met one of the doctors from the Pierce Clinic here, and they said, if things fall apart, give us a call. And I knew they were a training organization. I knew they had big ambitions, and I had the right skill sets to match it. So they were plan B, but it was probably the best thing that could have happened because we had never seen St. Pete, never been here. We just heard about it. We looked at some photos, saw there was palm trees and maybe a couple nice beaches, sold everything in California, drove all the way across the country to start work, and arrived in one of the coolest cities I think I could have ever landed.
Well, I think it worked out well for you.
Yeah, I agree.
So now that you are here, have been immersed in community for a long time, how would you describe the health of St. Pete and the Tampa Bay market?
Actually, pretty good in general. And I think a big part of it is the city also preserve what allows us to engage in life really fully. Mm-hmm. Like we don't have mountains. I would love mountains, but
I would too.
Short of mountains, we have so much to do here. And a lot of what we do in the community is not sit around. We get active. We get outdoors. We go to the beach. We go to the waterfront. We go walking. I mean, this is a walkable city, totally walkable city. Yeah. It is really nice to be in a city that thinks like that and gets out that much. Plus, we have sunshine almost every single day of the year in some way.
Sunshine City, right?
Sunshine City. So overall, good. But the health of the nation, and including St. Pete, is not. And I think a big part of it is we've not taken the time to learn or teach our children what concretely makes our body work right. And so a big part of what we're trying to do is pour into a city so you have the knowledge to do it. It doesn't mean you're going to do it. But I think one of the things we've done as a nation is almost made it illegal to feel symptoms and almost illegal to die. Right?
Yeah,
it's a weird way of saying it, but it's like you're not allowed to do that. It's like that's what happens. But we also experience symptoms because they're indicators that there's another problem going on.
Right.
So if I have a pain, it's not that I need to squash the pain. I need to understand what's driving the pain. If you have a check engine light going off, you don't put tape over the check engine light and go, problem solved. You pop the hood and figure out what's causing the indicators to make the light go on based on its design. And our design is that pain is the red flag or the check engine light saying there's something under the hood not working right. And we have to make sure we switch our mindset. And instead of trying to manage pain, we have to get down to what's causing the body to break down, not work right, what's making our cognition decline, what's making our body not function right, and restore it at its roots. And if we do that, everything's going to rise.
Well, to me, there's two parts of that equation. Mm-hmm. First, it's awareness, knowledge, and then the second piece is execution.
Right.
So I think I want to talk about both of those, but before I'm jumping into kind of the next phase of our conversation, I mean, you want to create a healthy city. Right. So what does that mean?
I've been saying it since we opened Cerebral that our main guiding mission is to raise the baseline health of an entire city. And I said it, and I was like, I don't actually know how to do that. I just said it out of my mouth, right? But
I mean, amazing goal for sure.
But it makes you think a lot different. Like I could market to make sure people see me, or I can contribute so that whether or not I ever see them as someone's doctor, that the impact that we make, that the education that we give, that the things that we share, that the way we contribute makes everything rise. It all ships rise with the tide, right? Like to pour in a way where people go, I understand that now. I'm going to change some of the things that I do. And so I think a huge part of it is going to be through education, and a portion of it will be through the clinical care that we provide. But we're doing things like provider nights. We're trying to create collaboration and teamwork with providers across professions where there normally wouldn't be any, and try to stimulate that so that even if we're never one of the doctors in the mix of referrals that are necessary, that the way we think as doctors gets people root cause solutions, right? So everything can lift together if we kind of strong arm the culture, the medical culture of this area, into a more reasonable, more rational, and more pragmatic approach to healthcare.
So I want to dig into that a little bit, because one of the expressions I like to use, going back to our conversation just about the openness of the city, the collaborative nature of St. Pete. One of the things I hear all the time, and I think it's absolutely true, is this is a city that, instead of sticking out their hand to greet you, I mean, they put their arms around you. Yeah. The medical community, correct me if I'm wrong, I mean, generally I would say maybe a little different, very resistant to change.
I have some comments on that.
Okay, good. Because so how does the community, the medical community locally, how do they receive those type of collaborative efforts to say, hey, let's all work
Medicine
together?
has moved from pragmatism to philanthropic survival.
Okay.
What I mean is, if you stub your toe and it bleeds a little bit, you're probably going to put a Band-Aid on it.
Yeah.
Band-Aid created a solution for a stub toe that's bleeding, right?
Yeah.
And you bought it with your own money in the free market.
Right.
Hospitals are not built on the free market. They're not built on, I have a problem, you have a solution, then let's make an exchange. They're built on, I have a problem, you have a solution, that guy's the funder, that politician is making it okay in the budget, you'll provide services based on some third-party bureaucrat deciding that doesn't even know what you're doing, and maybe I'll end up with a solution. And so the medical community is so torn apart because it's no longer a decision maker making a decision for the thing in front of them that they have the clinical skill to make, and a proper fair exchange with everything on the table before the exchange is made, being executed. Like with Cerebral, we're in the free market. We're not in network with any health insurance because they try to dictate care, they try to control through what they choose to fund and not fund, which most doctors, I don't know if it's most, I think people are moving out of it more, but there is a lot of the medical community that will bend their original goal of why they exist for what gets funded. And they morph their practices into a more fundable version rather than dig in their heels, make the impact, and make fair exchange solutions in the free market, which is where I think we'll end up surviving. I heard it best. It was actually, this is wild. It was Mitt Romney and Barack Obama. They were in the town hall meeting, and Barack Obama was introducing the Obamacare model. Mm-hmm. And this sticks in my head so well because it was so well articulated. So he was talking about how it needs to be subsidized more by the government. And Mitt Romney made the argument that he thinks it should be thrown totally to the free market. And he goes, we've done it in our state, but he explained why. This isn't political. It's just he did such a good job explaining it. And he said, in the free market, people will not choose to depart with their own money for a bad solution.
Yes.
But if you subsidize it, you force the bad solution. Yes. And I was like, oh my gosh, he nailed it. Like, that's actually what we're encountering is it's not just Obamacare. It's the health insurance companies. It's state money from any state. We're subsidizing it. And usually when there's government subsidies, you know this well, in the free market, first you test the market viability of a product or service before putting all your eggs in that basket.
Right.
With the government, first they come up with the solution, then they fund it, then they release it, then they figure out if the market even wanted it.
Yes.
And that has happened so much in healthcare to the point where we spend more than any nation on earth, and yet our health is plummeting. I think we're like 83rd healthiest country in the world.
It's not good.
It's terrible.
I know that.
That was one of the more recent ones I saw from the World Health Organization. It's just been going down and down and down. So we have lots of money being spent, lots of innovation being made, and not a lot of root cause solutions because we're not actually healthier as a result of it. And I think that should be the indicator that we need to pivot.
Well, how do you get those providers that are beholden to insurance companies and other funding sources to kind of walk away from that and
It's hard on all
partner
fronts. It's
with
hard
you.
for them and it's hard for the public, because the public has come to realize that there is a lot of ways where I don't have to put in anything. I mean, you're putting in tax money, but there's enough philanthropy that people are just saying, I get to live the way I live. Philanthropy, including government funding. So we'll just call it, put all those eggs in the same basket. I can live the way I live. I don't have to deal with the consequences now. If anything happens later, it's someone else's responsibility to handle it. And a lot of people think this is almost mean, but when you listen, it makes a lot of sense. There's a proverb and it says, hunger will spur a man on to work.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
In other words, like you get hungry enough, you start to get motivated to do something about it, right?
Yeah.
And if we do not let you experience the consequences of a lack of engagement, then you might not get engaged. And some people say, well, no, we always have to act. You don't actually. In the same way, pain can spur a person on to change, right? And it sounds rude. It sounds mean, like I'm trying to be a mean doctor. But really what I'm saying is if you get the privilege of experiencing the consequences of your actions, and I say it as a privilege, then it could be the greatest motivator to say, I'm not going to live that way anymore. And if we shape our healthcare environment around you not taking responsibility, but we just make you feel better about it, then we're never going to get out of this pit. So we have to switch that over and allow people to experience the consequences of their behaviors, but intervene in places that someone couldn't solve it for themselves. I can choose whether or not to eat a pint of ice cream.
Right.
Doctor doesn't have to like bind my hands behind my back so that I can't do it. But there are things that have happened to us. Like I've had concussions. I needed help. I needed somebody else to do something for me and with me. But ultimately, I still am responsible for my health and stewardship of my own life.
So where does that, and I think we need to kind of tiptoe around this. I don't even know how to answer the question, but so the accountability piece. So, I mean, I'll even go back to, I've had some experiences with, urban gardens and kind of the lower socioeconomic class, coming out to see like how food is being grown, because they're not going out to a farm.
Right.
And are astonished by the fact that, oh, you can actually grow. This is where tomatoes come from.
Right.
This is where peppers come from. And I don't have to, just go to a grocery store or go to a McDonald's or something like that. Not even really being aware of where the food comes from. And then to layer on that is, okay, now the consequences of eating processed foods, eating that pint of ice cream.
Right.
I mean, it needs to start with the education. And if there's not that piece to then tie into, okay, there's consequences to not eating healthy. I mean, there's certainly the personal consequences, but where does the accountability piece of allowing you to kind of have to deal with your own decisions?
It's not about bringing in punishment, because I think that's just doubling down. You already get the natural consequence.
Right. Okay.
So you don't need someone else to come in and make it even worse for you.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. All right. Good.
I think what it is just it's stepping back for a second. Okay. When our kids do something, right, and it hurts them, we're like, you probably shouldn't do that anymore. Right.
Right.
We're actually training them that the pain you're experiencing is its own consequence. I don't also have to punish you. You just got the lesson.
Right.
And now all I'm doing is I'm shedding light on the lesson you just learned by direct consequence. So if you don't want to feel that again, here's different behaviors you can engage in that have different outcomes that don't hurt because they're better, right?
Yes.
That's what I mean by education. It's not just saying spend a bunch of money. I think the economic side of the conversation definitely comes into play, right? You should eat well. What is well? And how do I access it, and how do I afford it?
Right.
That I think a lot of people feel frozen right from there. But I'm sorry, you can go running on the beach barefoot. Like you don't need gear to move.
Right.
So there are some things you can do right now, and it's just will, it's grit, it's choice. There are things that we need to say, hey, you're experiencing the consequences because of this, and I'm not going to do anything to mask it. And that one, I think, blows doctors' minds because they're just like, you have to do something. You have an obligation. I go, no, I do not. I do not have an obligation to create a delusional reality for someone else where they don't feel the realness of their own life. That's not my obligation.
And
the
then you talk
fact
about
that
just treating the symptoms, like just prescribing
that,
something.
yeah,
so that-
it's
so
more on
they're
the
able to
prescription side.
ignore-
It's more on the prescription side, but you can use natural substances. You can use herbal medicine. You can use holistic type medicine in pharmaceutical ways. What I mean by that is you can engage in those types of medical practices or providers, and they can offer solutions that don't actually deal with the root of the problem, but you feel better. But you're now becoming dependent on them, like you were dependent on the Advil, like you were dependent on the other drug. And if the dependency continues long term in the same manner, you're actually not getting down to the root of what's driving it.
Right.
So it's not as much the substance as it is whether or not it's a solution oriented type care.
Okay. And then for the record, I mean, you're not against prescriptions. It's just over prescribed.
Most prescriptions, like, it makes more sense in trauma care and not in healthcare.
Okay.
Trauma care is you're an otherwise healthy person and something catastrophic happens to you and it's threatening the loss of either life or function. Most drugs are excellent for those types of situations. It's battlefield wounds, it's trauma care, it's all that kind of stuff. But pharmaceuticals don't make your body better because you can't chemically manipulate homeostasis. It's not possible.
Right.
Because as soon as you throw a chemical into the mix, that becomes the controlling and dominant factor in the homeostasis process.
Right.
So it's very difficult in healthcare to do it. But if it's trauma, if you're going to die, oh yeah, I'm disrupting your homeostasis. You already have a disruption of your homeostasis, right? Like, it's already there. So I think that's the bigger distinguishing factor. So am I against it? Me personally, you don't have to agree, but I am in those types of situations, like the healthcare world, because it's not getting people well again. But trauma care, I totally understand. Even in the military, I'm like, that's a category of its own. Wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole, because if you're going to get a gunshot wound, you better be in the United States of America or like Israel or something like that, where we have top tier trauma care.
Great trauma care.
Yeah, yeah.
I see I think maybe the example that I can see from not my own personal experience, but people that we know, is that, they have some sort of condition or ailment. They take some medicine, which then creates some other issue, and then they're on another prescription, and then it just balloons until you're taking 7 pills and talking about homeostasis and don't even know where it started and what was the root cause of the original issue. And if you would have addressed that, you probably don't need the other 7 medicines.
I'm not saying it's always easy.
Yeah.
I'm really not. And I will say, like, even the chiropractic field, we used to be bold. Like, you read the writings of some of the chiropractors and the founders in the 1920s and 30s, they were ripping on the medical world hard.
Yeah.
That also was a less toxic world.
Yeah.
Everyday life was a lot more physical, so people moved all day, every day.
Yeah.
They weren't sedentary. So it was a completely different environment. Right now, we are in a very sedentary, very toxic environment. And those are things that we need to address, but there needs to be a level of grace. I thought about it once, because I think it was either my wife or my dad, or probably both. They were saying, you can't be this aggressive against the pharmaceutical stuff, because people are living on this. And I thought about it for a minute. I go, if I was a tyrant and I could make it utterly illegal to take any drug, I'd be the biggest mass murderer in 24 hours, because people are alive because they are so dependent. So instead of focusing on bashing what I don't like about the pharmaceutical approach, I realized I should spend the rest of my life helping people understand how to raise the baseline health of their own body and their own life, so that the idea of taking one is stupid. Like, why would I disrupt this? I don't know why I would do that, because I'm working really well.
Well, and so therein kind of lies the question: how can we do that at scale? Because actually, as you were talking about kind of looking in the past, and I mean, this area was founded on tourism.
Yeah.
And I love looking at the old pictures of people on the beaches, and some of it's just societal and how silly it is to look at, people in the 20s. And I mean, there's overhangs of people in suits watching, people on the beach who, men are darn near fully clothed. But I'm looking at everybody, and there was one picture I saw recently. There was probably 400 people on the beach, there was one person that was overweight. I mean, it was just a different time. And
It was.
so, I mean, to think about, our food source and, all the toxins that we're constantly bombarded with. How do you get to a point to where you do have that, you're a beacon of health and you want to preserve it?
The food side, I've seen so many initiatives in the city that they're moving in the right way. And it's not my world. I will root them on. I'll point people in that direction. And I don't think I can do any of this mission alone, right? Education, I know people that talk and teach and they share these types of things to raise that level. And I'm just trying to be an amplifier for anything good that I find. But ultimately you have to, I think that most people are mission driven. Like they need to know why they are getting healthier, because if there's no point to like what they would do with a healthier life, where's the motivation to do any of it?
Right.
I mean, I wake up, I'm like, bam, like 5 a.m. I'm late
Let's
for the
go.
day,
Yeah.
right? Like I want to get going for the day, but I love what I do and I love helping people. And I think everybody is capable of amazing things. I think that their health, the health of their brain, the health of their bodies is a big obstacle that they have to overcome to even be able to start contributing in the way that they have passion. But most people, if they see hope, you can see some of that passion rise too.
Well, maybe final two questions. One, mental health.
Mm-hmm.
It's a big issue right now.
Right.
How does that fit into the process?
The simple way of putting it, right? My type of care. Oh, you're talking about in general, like the city or our type?
Both.
Okay. So our type of care focuses on the health of the brain itself. And a good example is somebody that had a blast injury, like a veteran. They will have structural issues coming from that blast that's affecting the brain health, but they also have the experience that can be traumatic. You double those up and you have a very, very complicated problem, but a lot of times they get referred over just to mental health care, and it drives them nuts. It drives them nuts because they're like, I'm doing everything I'm supposed to do, but nothing's getting better.
Right.
I have headaches. I can't see straight. I'm dizzy all the time. My eyes don't work right. But they're trying. They're tough people and they're giving it everything and they can't. So what we do is, simplest way to put it, we are trying to fix the hardware of the brain, because it's very hard for the software, the way we think and function and emote, it's very hard for the software to work when the hardware is broken.
Well said.
Yeah.
Final question. If you're going to appeal to other providers in the community or just philanthropies, people doing, work in the community to create that better city, I mean, what's the pitch? What would you ask?
I would just say this. I mean, whether it's us or anybody else, ask enough questions to see if we're actually solving the root cause of a problem or just making someone feel better. Because if we're solving root problems, go for it. There's going to be trial and error along the way, but definitely contribute. And I'm not knocking it. I'm not saying stop doing it. I'm just saying that we should not be funding things that make us feel better when we're not, because it's like funding delusion. Like I use strong words on purpose, but it's so that we can. I'm trying to say it strong enough that we stop and pause and think, am I just throwing money at something, or are we actually getting somewhere with this? And if we're getting somewhere, then it's going to be well worth the time, the energy, and the money that's being put into it.
Anything else you want to share with our listeners?
I would just say this, Cerebral, what we're doing with Cerebral Chiropractic Center, we really are trying to help with some of the more challenging issues. If anybody has some stuff like the headaches, the migraines, the dizziness, the vertigo, brain fog, oddly, POTS and dysautonomia is this rising issue. Those are the types of things we deal with in the clinic, and they can definitely reach out to us if they have any questions or they're really seeking to.
Good segue. So how do they find you?
So we go to you can go to cerebralchiropractic.com. We actually are located on MLK and 76th Avenue North.
Okay.
So not far from downtown. And Cerebral Chiropractic Center, cerebralchiropractic.com is the website. We have a ton of information on there. We wanted to make sure that was a robust site with information that really helps the most inquisitive and desperate people.
Well, Dr. Chris, thank you for coming on Money Market.
Thank you.
You can find Money Market Podcast and the Bank of Tampa online, as well as at YouTube, LinkedIn, X, Facebook, and Instagram. Before you leave, make sure you hit that like, follow, or subscribe button. Thank you for listening, and we'll be sure to see you around in the Money Market.